North by Northwest. Today we are painting a scene in watercolor. This is my sample sheet that I did. I just to figure out what colors I'm going to be needing, just so when I actually get down to it, I am prepared and know exactly what I'm going to be doing, so I don't have to mess up. Here's my setup, and let's begin. So we are doing everything in the sky first. So I'm just going to get everything wet here and make sure it's nice and evenly wet all across the sky. I am using cerulean blue, and I'm just going to do it in probably about 2 layers here. I want to make sure that everything is nice and even. So you can see that I have a bloom here, and which is just happens with the water was uneven, so I'm just going to kind of even that out. I don't want to have that in the sky. Alright, the sky is done, and so we're going to start on the ground. And the road is has a very gray look to it. So I'm just going to use that first, and because it's a very light color. And now I'm going in with a lemon yellow to basically do the whole ground. I'm going to do the whole background and most of the ground below, just because there's so much light yellow in the hay, like on the ground, that it's just easier to put it all in there. So I just painted an entire plane and forgot to hit record. I'm so sorry. But here it is, and it was all done in Payne's Gray, but I'm going to go in a little bit darker, just put another layer in just to add a little more depth and make it stand out against the sky a little better. So I'm just adding brown and texture to the background. This is not going to be an exact replica of what I see in the source from the actual movie. So it's a lot more simplified, yet brighter in color, I would say, just because it's more fun to paint that way. So we have this brown, I believe, maybe a raw umber. I don't remember exactly what I'm using here. But I'm not going to paint over all this yellow. I want to make sure that yellow also sticks out. So the road has kind of a green tint to it, so I'm adding a bit of a green mixed with like a Payne's Gray, just like a grayish green color, and I'm adding that to the road and even to the field itself. It just adds some nice color and shadows to the ground. So I am learning to do watercolor painting by painting these movie scenes. So if you'd like to see more of this kind of stuff, please subscribe. Just going to add some black to the plane to add some shadow on the very underside of it, so you can see that it's not a two-dimensional object. And with a final touch of the posts from a fence, then we have a finished background. I'm really going to go in with lots of layering throughout the rest of Cary Grant's figure. So just starting with lighter colors, of course, and that's starting with the lemon yellow. And on the jacket that I just showed here, you can see that the one side of his jacket was very blue in color and the other side was more green, and that's just probably how the light was hitting it and while he was running. The hands were interesting because they're not in focus because he's running, so there's definitely a big motion blur within his hands, and it's only in his hands. So I actually considered drawing it myself, try to figure out what his hands actually looked like, but I decided just to go with the blur, and so the hands are not going to look finished. It'll look more like a blob in a sense, but hopefully a blurry blob. I'm sticking with that green tint on his pants that are also more in shadow than the other side of his jacket. So I'm learning through this that the painting is really painting shadows. So I'm just doing little shadows at a time and going darker and darker with each layer when I go back to his face, especially, just because that's going to bring out the features more than details like in the lines and everything. I find that painting with color is interesting when it comes to white shirts, because of course he's wearing a white shirt, but you can't paint with white, so especially on a white background. So really it's not looking white, it's going to have some color to it depending on what the surroundings are. They're going to be reflecting other colors. So there's yellow and brown that's going to be reflecting off of his shirt from the surrounding field. You'll see whenever I do a darker color on his face, I tend to wipe it away pretty soon after I lay it down. And that is actually leaving a little bit of color behind so I can see better where the features are, but it's not making it stand out so much. And that's intentional. I don't want there to be these dark lines and shadows all over his face, even like if it's making the features like a drawing. I want it to be a little more subtle so that things are coming out more naturally and there's not these harsh lines. So I'm not saying this is going to be the best shirt you've ever seen painted, because it's not. I am still new at this. I'm still getting used to controlling the watercolor. So I feel like it'll end up looking okay at this point. But yeah, another thing to work on and practice. So what's important to me right now when I'm doing his face and his likeness is mostly about the shapes, because the shapes is what's going to make him recognizable, not necessarily all the perfections in his features and the wrinkles and like even his eye shape. Like it's not, like, eye shape is probably a little bit important, but as long as the facial features are in the right place and the shapes are right, it tends to look good, and people are going to know right away that's Cary Grant, even if out of context. If you just saw just his face and not the rest of the scene, you'd probably be able to recognize who it is. I'm adding a little bit of white gouache, so it's a little more opaque, just to tiny little highlights. Alright, I'm going to remove this tape so we have a nice clean finish. Of course, not all tape is great. There was a little bit of a mess up there. But here we are, the finished product. This is definitely my favorite Hitchcock movie. I love this movie. I've seen it many, many times. I would love to hear what you think of this and the movie. Let me know what you think of Hitchcock. If you have another favorite, let me know in the comments.